session to adjourn by the plan.
Please remain standing, and Grant Cawthon leads us in the invocation.
Lord, thank you for gathering us here tonight, dear God. Thank you for people who come this way to help support this county. The Lord, we pray that you be with us and help lead and guide us in the right direction. The Lord, we pray that you be with any of the lost and the sick to help heal them before time be too late, dear God. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Ford, will you lead us in the pledge?
Please, flag.
Was against the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May be seated. Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Beverly Atwood. Tommy Belcher.
Here.
Shane Burton.
Here.
Alan Carmen.
Here.
Grant Cochran.
Here.
Brian Crook.
Here.
Will Dennis.
Here.
Jerry Ford.
Here.
Chris Gregory.
Here.
Bubba Gregory.
Here.
Landon Gully.
Present.
Richard Johnson.
Here.
Judy Kerr. Here. David Nallner.
Here.
Leslie Overman. Here. Mark Presley.
Here.
Amber Russell. Here. Lonnie Taylor.
Here.
David Thomas.
Here.
Steve Whitaker.
Here.
All 20 present.
I assume everyone's had an opportunity to look over the minutes, so at this time I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented. Motion by Chris Gregory, second by Mr. Ford. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carried. Under announcements, item 6, Halloween will be observed on Tuesday, October 31st. Trick or Trunk will be next Tuesday at the Senior Center and the County Park Complex. You can contact Jenny Gregory at the Senior Center to participate. Also, the Goose Gala will be this weekend, 28th on Saturday night. It's a sellout. I think they've sold about 316 tickets, something like that. Will raise a lot of money for downtown revitalization. So for everyone that was involved in that or took place in that, thank you very much. Are there any other announcements at this point?
Ms. Russell.
I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
There will be a trunk or treat at FBC on the 31st.
Okay. At First Baptist on the 31st.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you for that. Any other announcements? There are no changes to tonight's agenda, so I'll entertain a motion to set the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Gully, second by Bubba Gregory. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carried. If you wish to speak to the commission about a matter on this month's agenda, please sign in at the podium. Any members of the public, you'll be called to address the commission at the proper time. Anyone like to sign in at this time? If not, under the county mayor's report, we have 3 items that are listed in the agenda. I'll be interviewing in the next couple of weeks candidates for fire chief, and I'll bring a recommendation to the court on our November meeting. In the coming weeks, we'll be posting the building inspector position for the planning office and taking applications for that position. The accounting staff will be meeting with Paychecks tomorrow, the company that would outsource payroll, to find out what the cost would be and if it would be cost effective to go that route. There's also in discussions with our current provider, My Benefits Channel, on services that they offer that might take some of the load off of our staff. Also, I don't want to give you 2 or 3 reports. I am in conversations with Reagan Smith, the engineering firm that created our curbs downtown to get those corrected. So the same engineer that drew those plans up are going to be visiting with me to see what we can do to correct those. The Ward School property, we're waiting for EPA to do a phase 1 environmental survey of that 8 acres up there for the possibilities of building a nature trail. Phase 1 is almost complete with the assessment of Holder's warehouse. our next move, we'll be bringing in a structural engineer to tell us about the integrity of that building. I met with Chief Beatty today. I can and with the hospital board today, I can tell you that the relationship between our EMS and our hospital is vastly improved from both sides. That's going really well. Overtime is down significantly. And Cliff Salee and Oscar were up at the EMS building recently to look over the improvements that have needed to be made up there for some time. So I'm really happy to report that our situation with EMS is vastly improved, and both Chief Beatty and I feel very good about that. We're also, I have GNRC looking at a competitive grant right now, which involves Broadband Ready. It's a competitive grant up to $2 million to be involved as far as workforce development as it relates to broadband, virtual health monitoring, virtual education, and broadband access. It's being made available to a number of communities. There's a total of $3 million and $30 million involved in this particular grant, and we could receive up to $2 million. There's a possibility I see that might be used to upgrade some of the older building if we eventually decide on that. And it's a 20% matching grant, so that's something for us to consider down the road. Other than that, that's about the extent of my report to you tonight. Any questions of the mayor at this point? Yes, sir.
About a human resource, any applicants for that, or we got somebody for that position?
We have
Yeah.
hired a human resource position. Her name is Dawn Deneen. She has been doing wonderful. She's been with us for 3 weeks now.
Yeah, and doing a great job. Really great. That's been a great addition. Yes, sir. Oh, okay. Okay, with that, we'll move on to committee board reports. I met with the current committee chairs to review upcoming and continuing issues in their committees, and they'll give a report to you as I call upon them in this month's meeting. From Codes and Zoning, David Thomas.
Codes and zoning on October 3rd. We discussed the ordinances before us tonight, taking into account the amendment that was passed at our last month's meeting. Also looking, Gregory brought up the point of the wording on our list of prohibited. We're talking about that and amending that. I'd like to make a further amendment to that wording tonight, if given a chance. That is where we changed the wording from strictly prohibited to wall facing. Wall front, the front wall there, the road frontage building materials. Prohibited is implied, it's being read as though we're banning a material from being used. That was never the intent of the ordinance, because it's against the state law to do so. That really does need to be restricted, is the proper term for that. Talking with Mr. Gregory, that is his recommendation also, to keep us out of any legal problems that might arise down the road. GNRC recommended that language when they brought it to us. Got an email back from GNRC. Once again, it is laced with, this is not legal advice. Mr. Beller's favorite comments to hear from them, but they give their legal advice. And it does, it's interesting the line they keep walking. Personally, I get a little irritated with them for doing this sort of thing. If you're going to give legal advice, then give legal advice, and if you're not, you just say so. But in their response, their interpretation of the section of the code that says shall not prohibit particular construction materials, and they throw the caveat, I'm not an attorney, but is that the proposed commercial architectural standards do not prohibit the materials in their entirety, only on the front facing road front facade. Once again, the email is giving their opinion, stating that they're not giving an opinion.
So I just wanted to bring that update from that meeting. Also, we're putting together through planning a definition for minimum fire protection. So far, what's coming forward would be a 500 gallons per minute on a 6-inch line with a fire hydrant 500 foot away from the property, or a sprinkler system installed on any structure on the property. We're still going through that in planning, and so that addition will be coming forward to the commission in later date.
Thank you, sir. Under budget and finance, Mr. Gully.
Yes, sir. Finance met on October 16th, last Monday night for a work session. Looked over the trustees' cash balance, with some questions in determining, Mr. Dennis, Commissioner Dennis brought up a couple of good points that our current banking system with CDs drawing at 5.25% might be important to look at our numbers, getting Ms. Carmen, Cindy Carmen, which we kind of talked with, and see if there's any more money that the county can put in some CDs short term at this point. So that was really where that's at this point. We'll get clarifications if any of that is happening in the near future. Next up, looked at the financial summaries reports and each fund balance, found no discrepancies. When you look through these, there's some areas that look a little weird from time to time if you look at them because of monies that came in this year. By that I mean we changed in debt service some of our loans when we put everything under one piece. So it looks like some areas are at 80% or things of that nature, but that's due to money in for those pieces. So would like to report that it's good to see that the PRN position line item we added to the EMS service is being utilized. So the first draws or so from that have been utilized. So it's been a successful piece. I know you mentioned the overtime was down, and we did notice that piece. It's running a little bit higher than the monthly salary on personnel, but which is running at about 12%, and it's running at about 20%, but pretty close. Nowhere where we were in the past. Other items all look very good in the summary there, the financial summaries for the county at this point. We did also our quarterly meeting. This was our next quarterly meeting for purchasing. So we did look over all county purchasing. If you have any questions on any of those, we can certainly bring those to the table. I know, and I appreciate you mentioning that the rescue plumbing and those repairs have been looked. Mr. Slee's been up that way and looked at that, because that did come to the table, that there was some plumbing work done at the rescue center, rescue building, where it could be, I think it was approved to redo that area. So it hadn't come to place yet, but that was the only one that was questioned. It was voted on and approved by the committee. Past that, we've got a few budget amendments tonight. The sheriff's dispatcher position was clarified to us. If you remember, that one was tabled from the previous month. There was some, let me try to get this as clear as I can. If you want more, I'll get it clear, but there was one area where in the 101 where 4 dispatchers were mentioned. There was an area in the 111, if I'm saying that correct, Ms. Amy, let me know if there's something there. In the 111 that had 3 dispatchers. So when Urban Service met, they approved it with 1 dispatcher instead of 2. So this was an additional position. Saying that this will be 8 positions added to the Sheriff's Department this year. 4 of those being officers, 3 of those being dispatchers, and 1 of those being a warrants clerk. There we go. Sorry, I lost the term. Appreciate that. But those did come with a favorable recommendation from the committee. The rest of what we see here are ARPA grants or grant money that is being spent. So each of those were approved as well with a favorable recommendation. I think that concludes mine. So
Thank you, Mr. Gully. Under audit, I understand, Ms. Atwood, that you have a meeting set for October 24th.
Yes, sir. We will meet tomorrow night. That's the call.
Do you have any other report at this point? Okay. Under Public Works, Mr. Gregory, you have a meeting set for Wednesday. Are there any other committee reports? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, personnel is set for November the sixth, at the mayor's office.
Got that.
Yep.
November 6th. Any other report? Yes, ma'am.
Emergency services will meet November 11th. That's it. Here.
November 11th. Okay. Any other committee
Oh,
reports?
sorry. November 8th, sorry.
Okay. November 8th.
Was that at 6 or 7?
Seven. I'm not the boss. I don't know. It's November 8th here, 7 o'clock.
Gotcha. Any other committee reports? I've been cautioned not to go too fast, so I'm gonna pause for a moment before we go to resolutions. Under active business, under item A, resolutions, resolution 2023-26 795, commission committee appointments. I believe this was announced at work session, but to remind everyone, and before you vote, Leslie Overman has been added to the finance committee. There were no other changes except Bubba Gregory has asked to be removed from the law enforcement committee because he is now a bondsman and he sees that as a conflict of interest. Mr. Beller, would you like to address the finance committee for a moment?
I would. Thank you, Mayor. It was brought up with regard to the number of folks that were put on the Budget Finance Committee being now 8 total recommended versus the 5. The original 5, your charter requires under section 4.07 to have a purchasing oversight committee. And that is per charter. Now that's, I have read the charter and I've also actually asked another county attorney just to what their reading of that particular section was. And both he and I agree that it's no less, no more, so that it would be 5. Now, the next question is, well, can you have your purchasing oversight committee within your budget finance committee? The answer is yes. So you would have, even though you would have 8 members, 5 of those members are going to be your purchasing oversight committee members. Of course, they meet quarterly and make their reports. I believe the other 3 would not have any involvement in that. So it's just something to keep up with, but it is permissible and it is allowable to do it that way.
Questions?
How do those 5 are they selected?
Well, maybe I'm making an assumption here, okay? And it's my assumption would be that they would have been the original 5 members. Now that's an assumption. And that's something that would certainly, I assume that's something for discussion. So that even those members themselves could select amongst themselves the 5. But that's 2 different mechanisms by which that could happen.
You have a resolution before you. I would entertain a motion to approve. Motion to approve, Mr. Presley, second by Mr. Taylor. Discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Any opposed, no. Motion carried. For the building committee, which is a new committee that was suggested because we have so many buildings going on, I've designated Lonnie Taylor to schedule and lead the first meeting until the chairman is elected. Please get with Ms. Thomas to schedule a date and time. Mr. Taylor, if you would, please. Moving on to ordinances. We have before us ordinance 297-2023-34 to amend zoning ordinance, adding sections 3.120. Commissioner Thomas, I did see a revision come through on Thursday, Friday of last week. Would you like to elaborate on that again?
So the revision that is currently in place and before you changed the did everything that we had voted on and was approved in the amendment from last week or last month's meeting. So that got changed. Then in code and zoning, we were looking at, the wording on the prohibited. What we ended up changing in that meeting was adding the road frontage, building material, building to all those different categories. That's what is presented out of that committee. It came through planning. In discussions from last week's work session, I would like to make a, motion to amend this to remove prohibited from this ordinance and replace it with the word restrict.
Can we do it? Okay. So you're making a motion to amend it with those words.
Yes.
Then I'll need a second to that motion to amend. Have a second from Mr. Nolan. All in favor to amend that motion with that wording changed?
Prohibited to what?
If you call on him to speak about a certain ordinance, and then he throws in a way to amend it, makes a motion to amend it. That's kind of, it leaves it to where we can't even talk about it.
Well, you have an opportunity to discuss the amendment.
But you call on him to speak about the ordinance, not to make an
We
amendment.
can have a discussion right now.
I'm sorry.
You can have a discussion right now.
Well, we can discuss it now.
I'll wait to see if the amendment passes.
Okay. Everyone understand that we're amending the ordinance by changing the wording, which is, if you mind telling us again.
Everywhere in the ordinance where it says prohibited, that will be changed to restricted.
Okay. So you're clarifying the language. Okay. We have a motion to amend and a second before the body. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Any opposed?
No.
Motion carried. Okay. Now we have we need a motion on this ordinance as amended. Are you offering,
I'm gonna make a motion.
you're making the motion
Yes, sir.
to approve?
Tonight.
I am asking for a motion to approve.
I'm making a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. I need a second.
This right here is overstepping your bounds. You go ahead.
You want to give us a legal opinion on that?
You already had the motion. I know. Just let him do it. Let's do it.
He's rescinded his motion. There's a motion to approve on the table for that statement.
Okay.
There's a motion to approve.
There is a motion to approve, which I'd asked for as chair. I need a second. Have a second from Mr. Thomas. Okay, we're voting on the motion as amended. Listed as ordinance 297-2023-34. Yes, sir.
Before we vote, where would this fall in terms of, say, Enbridge and their original plan with the presented with the barns and that conversation they brought to the community? Where would this fall? Enbridge is a commercial or a industrial?
It's a good question.
I'm a little concerned in what we saw, what we seen a lot from there.
I believe Enbridge though, Mr. Gully, in some of the conversations we had, I believe, and someone correct me if I'm incorrect about this, they essentially told us that they would comply with whatever format we required of them. And so I don't know that there would be that issue based off on that statement. Now, that could be totally different at this point. It's been a while, but I think they indicated that they were willing to work with us with regard to any type of features, facade or otherwise.
That's again, Mr. Bell, I remember that the same way you do, that they said they would work with us. What I'm asking is, it seemed like the drawings they were trying to bring to us looked farm friendly for the community that they were in. and I'm sort of asking, I may not be wording this in the way I need to get it worded out. Where would they fall in these preferred pieces of building, a barn style building? And it looking like barn type community there? Would that be, I don't see how those would be available in this piece. I guess that's why my real question is, hey, two parts. Is it, do they fall under commercial, or do they fall under industrial, or do they fall under some other on their own? And I'll leave it.
Ms. Mylan, would you like to address this?
Yes, this ordinance is dealing strictly with the urban district, which is the city limits. So what Enbridge is coming forward and the land that they're talking about is outside the city limits, so this ordinance would not apply to that.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, if I may, I made this point the first time this came up. I'm not against some good changes to our urban areas. However, I have a concern that right now, currently, we are hired an individual, Rick Gregory, and we are paying him to combine our ordinances. So at some point in time, very soon down the road, we're gonna be presented, from what I understand, with a combination, and they're no longer being an urban set of zoning. So I hear what you're saying now, but if that's coming in what I understand, maybe I misunderstand that. But my understanding is those are being combined to one.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, within the city limits, with the combining of the ordinance, we are taking into account the differences that have to be addressed within the county and within the city, and we will be able to make differential limitations in our ordinance. So have a combined ordinance, but it would also address that which is in the city limits and that which is in the county. And this would be one of those.
Mr. Crook.
Going back to where we're changing the prohibited to restricted. That piece specifically came from Tennessee Code annotated 66-120-101. I'm not sure how many in here have actually read the TCA code. The TCA code doesn't change county to county. It's statewide. If you break a TCA code in Sumner County, you're going to break it in Brownsville. Okay. It also said the proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. If you go on down, after it says it's supposed to be in all caps, that's what that part of this ordinance is, this TCA code. If you go on down to section D, it says a regulations, ordinance, or code adopted pursuant to this subdivision shall not prohibit a particular construction material that has been approved by a national building code or the state fire marshal. That is what it says in TCA code. You got GNRC, which is okay with using some of the TCA code. They won't sign off on it because they know that we can get sued for it, but they don't want to use the other part. What you have here is a violation. I hope y'all open your eyes. Honestly, every commissioner in here should have read this TCA code. I deal with TCA codes on a daily basis. This, again, for everybody out there, is a bad ordinance. That's all I got. It's up to y'all.
Yes, sir, Mr. Whitaker.
Chairman, the only question that I have, shouldn't all of these issues been addressed in committee and at work session long before it got here? It seemed like every month things that should have been addressed previously end up debated when we get to county court. And we did that kind of activity for that.
Yes, sir.
So it concerns me too, that we specifically asked GNRC for something in writing, standing by their legal opinion, and they came back with, well, it's not a legal opinion. We don't expect us to stand by it. It makes me wonder if we are potentially opening ourselves to litigation down the road. I mean, no one can predict the future, but
Mr. Ford, I'll get to you in just a second. Yes, ma'am.
I just like to, take that over.
I'm sorry.
I looked at the statute, okay, and I looked at, and I actually, wanted to hear from Mr. Rick Gregory on this matter, okay? And, he and I kind of agree that the more appropriate language would be the restricted versus the prohibited because of the way the statute is written. Now, and then I understand the thought process behind if we pass this, can we wind up in a lawsuit? I mean, I don't want to assess what's your risk of that? Could possibly, but then again, you can do that with almost anything that local government does. You're subject to a lawsuit. It's whether or not they have a good case or not. I rely heavily on the thought processes of the folks that develop these ordinances simply by virtue of the fact that that's what they do primarily. When it gets into litigation and things like that, you look at case law and just an innumerable amount of information in representing the client. So for me to sit there and say that this is bad or good, it's an ordinance. It's one that if this commission wants to pass it as is, then you know what the language is. I don't know the word restricted. I don't like the word prohibited because of what Mr. Crook just pointed out. The language of the statute, it says you can't prohibit. And that specific code section is a regulation, ordinance, or code adopted pursuant to subdivision B7 shall not prohibit a particular construction material that is approved by a national building code or the state fire marshal. But then again, it doesn't say anything about restricting it. But you get into an argument over words of how you apply that. You know, you can restrict something so much you prohibit it. So there's I don't want to get into semantics over it, but so that's the way I view that. So I hope I've addressed your question.
Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
I would like to add, as I've said previously, when this was brought to planning, and we were looking at it, GNRC brought us sections of code from surrounding areas, Portland, Sumner, Gallatin, brought it from Lebanon, showing that this is how other municipalities in the area have done it. Mr. Beller had brought up the idea that anything that was passed before 2015 would have been grandfathered in before that particular part of the state code was put into effect. I did go and check with Gallatin, their city ordinance. Gallatin's was put in before 15. Lebanon's was put in after their Southport Hartman corridor regulations that they put in. It was put in after. Portland's was put in right about that time. I couldn't get a definite time on that one. So these are already into effect around our area. The whole reason the planning wanted to do it was, one, we didn't want to get into a situation where we saw a hole in our zoning where people were coming in wanting to take advantage of the lack of regulations here and bring businesses and building concepts that might become dilapidated within 5-10 years. Planning looks at things on a 20-year and further out basis, not an immediate 5-4 year cycle of things.
Mr. Ford, did you get to comment?
I think it's common our sense that we're walking on thin ice here. And I think Mr. Beller, in a sense, the other night, same as told us that better get it in writing if you're going to do it. And from what I just heard, they're not willing to put it in writing. So I don't, why do we want to put ourselves in that kind of condition? As bad as we need industry, as bad as we need stores coming in to do sales tax, why do we put ourselves in that position? I don't know if you call it make it hard on or whatever. I just don't see us. It's not a good move. Period.
Thank you. Any further comment before we vote? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to go over a little bit, about how it would affect insurance that would want to come into this area. With their building, or whether or not we would restrict them, and, sometimes they don't have a whole lot of money whenever they're starting up churches, and I would hate to hinder that. With something like this.
Further comments?
It's a bad ordinance.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Do we have a roll call on this?
Please.
You can. Madam Clerk? May we have a roll call?
Beverly Atwood,
No.
Tommy Belcher.
Yes.
Shane Burton.
No.
Alan Carmen,
No.
Grant Cochran,
No.
Brian Crook,
No.
Will Dennis,
No.
Jerry Ford,
No.
Chris Gregory,
No.
Bubba Gregory,
No.
Landon Gully,
No.
Richard Johnson,
No.
Judy Kerr,
Yes.
David Nollner,
Yeah.
Leslie Overman,
Yes.
Mark Presley,
No.
Amber Russell,
No.
Lonnie Taylor,
Yes.
David Thomas,
Yes.
Steve Whitaker.
No.
6 yes, 14 no.
Motion failed to carry. On to ordinance. For the next one. We have under items 2 and 3, ordinance 298-2023 35. Rezoning from A1 to R1 on 322 Highway 25 West. Also, under item 3, ordinance 299-2023 36, rezoning 36, rezoning A1 to R1, the same property. Ms. Mahan, would you please stand and come to the podium and address the commission on these requests? Mr. Jewell might have a comment after you speak. Yes, sir.
Before you go, can I just make a motion to approve both?
Yeah, want to approve them both together?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll second that one.
That'll save you some work there, Ms. Mahan. We have
I'll
a
second.
motion
I'll
and a
second.
second to approve. Any discussion?
I just have a question on the first ordinance, it's 2023-35, and if you look actually on the ordinance, it's 2023-35 as well. Those are two different ordinances, it's a typo, I understand that, but we just want to hear that that's correct. Look, it's not
You
on
are
the
correct.
page, but it's actually in the documents.
You are correct. Please make that change. Any other comments? We have a motion in a second. Any other comments? Not?
I would just ask the clerk to know that all abstaining calls on both of these.
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
Ask Ms. Rita to know, I'm going to abstain with calls on both of these.
Okay, okay, I understand.
Do I need to abstain my calls?
I think it's a given in the context in this room of why you're abstaining the call. So I don't
Okay.
think anybody's gonna question you about that, all right?
So we don't need room.
If I need to, that's fine.
No, I think we can all take notice of that.
Any other discussion? If not, we're voting on these two ordinances together. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried, both passed. Under budget, we have some budget amendments under item C. The first will need to be taken by roll call vote due to it coming from the unassigned fund balance. The remaining can be taken in one vote if so motion.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
So we just voted to take both of these at the same time. Don't we need to vote again to actually pass them?
I don't think so.
I believe the motion was to approve both at the
The
same.
motion is to approve both. Yes, sir. Do I have a motion on this budget amendment? I'm sorry. Yes. Okay, motion, I hear a second. Second from Grant Cochran. We're asking for a roll call vote, please. Yes, sir.
No, just, before we vote on this, so we need to clarify that this is an 8th position. I say, I have a real issue with any department head coming in 3 months into the fiscal year after we just passed. But they coming and saying, hey, I need another position. Well, why wasn't it asked for 3 months ago?
I think Mr. Gully clarified that, but would you repeat that, please?
So to try to clarify that piece, the sheriff originally asked for this same positions in the initial budget. He asked for this position to be funded out of the 111. 111 urban service, which is the 3 members inside the urban service that have the highest number of votes, make up that committee. Those members voted to only fund 1 dispatcher out of urban service. Therefore, this position was not funded. I do not disagree that there was discussion that said he's asking for 7, when he was truly asking for 8.
I don't know, no, he first mentioned it at a law enforcement committee back in January, I think it was. Now, I'm secretary of that committee. He specifically said at the time, I'm asking for 7 new positions, 4 deputies, 2 dispatchers, and a warrants clerk. This commission voted when we passed the budget to give him those, all 7 of those positions. Like I said, I can't vote for a department head coming in, this close into the fiscal year. Oh, hey, well, I really meant to ask for this. What's stopping any other department head from, oh, well, I really meant to ask for this.
Further discussion? Anyone? Yes, ma'am.
From what I understood, Sheriff Russell to say was that, he handed it in kind of open-ended, and the way that it was done, I guess, wasn't how, he had intended for it to be. That's why he's having to go back and ask for it.
Mr. Thomas.
So I'm just wondering, has there anything changed as far as demand or what that would justify adding the 8th position, the extra dispatcher, when budget and finance said no 7, urban services said no, we're only going to fund 1. I mean, those budgetary discussions have already been taking place. Has anything changed in the department that would determine that, yes, you do need an extra person now, and that we now all of a sudden have funds for this?
Is he asking you that question?
Who are you asking that question to?
I'm asking the chairman, do you have any information from the sheriff? Because the sheriff's not here for us to ask.
Just that he assumed from the beginning that he had 8 positions approved. That was the assumption that the sheriff had going in.
So
He was surprised when he made this hire that the money was not there that he had expected to be there.
So I go back to what Commissioner Gregory was stating. I looked at the minutes for that law enforcement meeting in January. Sheriff states 7 there. The worksheets that budget and finance got they're all said 7. I don't understand where the only confusion I can see is on the sheriff's side, because all the paperwork the commission was given all says 7, all the way up to being approved for 7. So if nothing's changed on the department demand side or the funds for that department, if we come across extra funding that we're unaware of, I don't see the reason of passing this.
Any further discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Can we, wait for him to be here to ask questions before it's voted on?
We've already postponed this once.
Got a motion in a second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor, so. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
The sheriff not here to speak to it.
He's not
Is
here.
the sheriff here to speak to it?
He's not here tonight. He was here. He spoke to it the last meeting, did he not?
No.
Okay. Madam,
Ready? Beverly Atwood,
Yes.
Tommy Belcher,
No.
Shane Burton,
yes.
Alan Carmen,
No.
Grant Cochran,
Yes.
Brian Crook,
Yeah.
Will Dennis,
No.
Jerry Ford,
No.
Chris Gregory,
No.
Bubba Gregory,
Yes.
Landon Gully,
Yes.
Richard Johnson,
No.
Judy Kerr,
Yes.
David Knowler,
Yes.
Leslie Overman,
No.
Mark Presley,
No.
Amber Russell,
Yes.
Lonnie Taylor,
Yes.
David Thomas,
No.
Steve Whitaker.
Yes.
11 yes, 9 no.
Motion carried. Next, the remaining items can be taken with one vote if so motion. We'll go over them before asking for a motion. Mr. Gully, would you like to discuss these
I don't mind a bit.
from finance?
What we have before us next are, the health department. I did not receive any additional information. There was a question on the health department in which it appeared that the plans had changed a little bit in size. However, this money was approved, ARPA funding originally. The health department is ready to move forward with that piece. Hopefully, we will get those clarifications into what changed. Originally, the size was going to require the county road department to deed a small bit of this property in front of the home that's used as the office space for that. And now that is not a requirement. At this point, I don't have any clarification on what changed size-wise. But this money was approved, ARPA funding in the past. We are just taking that further today. The next two are, well, I'm sorry, next one is the sidewalks, the grant there. I believe that was a 80-20 as well, is that correct?
90-10.
90-10, I should have done the math. But at that case, the sidewalks up Broadway, which in my opinion is a very good move. I think the commission voted, or the committee voted in favor, 5-0 on that one. The next two, you see our vocational school 141. When you see that 141 in front, that's telling us that's a school budget period piece. I think this is called is it Spark Grant? I believe maybe is the term for that. It's vocational school movement together. Both of these are under that same piece. They were each voted 5-0 favorable from the finance committee last Monday night.
Yes, sir.
Question, the second one with the sidewalk project, if that contains a fund balance draw, does that need to be done separately?
Good catch. Yes, that does.
All right, then I'll move to approve the other three.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the other three. Do I hear a second? Here, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Who's the second?
I'm sorry.
Who was the second?
Second was Mr. Presley. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, no. Motion carried. On the sidewalk grant. We'll need to take but I'll need a motion. Motion by Mr. Gregory, second by Mr. Presley. Madam Clerk.
Beverly Atwood. Tommy Belcher.
No.
Shane Burton,
Yes.
Alan Carmen,
Yes.
Frank Cochran,
Yes.
Brian Crooks,
Yes.
Will Dennis,
Yes.
Jerry Ford,
Yes.
Chris Gregory,
Yes.
Bubba Gregory,
Yes.
Landon Gully,
Yes.
Richard Johnson,
Yes.
Judy Kerr,
Yes.
David Knowler,
Yeah.
Leslie Overman,
Yes.
Mark Presley,
Yes.
Amber Russell,
Yes.
Lonnie Taylor,
Yes.
David Thomas,
Yes.
Steve Whitaker.
Yes.
19 yes, 1 no.
Motion carried. Under notaries, we have 5 to be approved. Edward Buckingham with UPS, Cindy Donahoe with Weld On, Jesse Huddleston with Carey Brothers Welding, Chris Johnson with Johnson's Bookkeeping, and Peggy J. Taylor with Hartsville Travel Highway Department. I hear a motion to approve. Motion to approve by Mark Presley, second by Mr. Ford. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, no. Motion carried. Is there any other business to come before the commission at this point? Yes, ma'am.
Hey, so we got this email. And it was, hold on, let me get it. Revolution Team Reporting. What is this? What is this about? Where we're not following the Constitution?
Somebody help me here.
Let me speak to that. I need to read that email for any comments made on that in public at all, okay? And that's legal advice. We get a lot of emails from a lot of different sources. Some of those sources are legitimate, some of them are illegitimate. And I don't want to speculate any type of response, particularly constitutional arguments right now in the state of things going on. Okay?
Okay.
So I'd recommend just give me the opportunity to look at that. If a response is necessary, I'll respond to it.
Okay.
Is there any member of the public that wishes to address the commission at this time? Public comment? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry.
I got one thing, and I should have mentioned it earlier in the meeting, but the quarterback club is having a block party down here for the last home game. For which is also senior night for the football team. So I would like for just everybody to know about it. It'd be nice if everybody could show up and support the boys on for hopefully they'll make it to the playoffs.
Okay. Motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor, say aye. We're adjourned.